Welcome to the Tiny Box Dialogues. This series was created to share the knowledge of our experts using real examples from real people with real stories. Welcome to our dialogues this week. Laura Schulte will be joining us to add her thoughts from a personal brand perspective on recruiting. And today we are speaking to experts Malin Behrens and Christian Kalaus. I hope I said your names right. We'll start with Malin. Now, you started your recruiting career right after your business studies more than 10 years ago. You've worked internationally, built up expertise in permanent employment, contract and project management, specifically in the life sciences sector. And you recently founded WeCo Experts GmbH. We'd love for you to share your backstory and why you love what you do.
Yeah, well, thanks for having Christian and myself, Raj. Yeah, as you said already, I've been in the recruitment business for quite a long time. I actually started my career in 2010 already, working for a big recruitment company focusing on life sciences. Actually, Christian and myself, we met at this company for the first time. So over 10 years ago, we already know each other. So during my career, I built up teams in permanent contract for the DACH market, setting up the medical device markets from scratch. In 2015, I took on a European role where I managed freelance projects up to 100 consultants at one time, also for the life science sector. In 2017, I left S3 to fulfill myself a big dream and started traveling the world. Actually, back then, without knowing what I'm gonna do, and during my travels, I got approached through somebody with my network, asking if I can support filling some key roles in the life science sector. And this is actually how I started my freelance career back in Australia, where I was back then, because Xing already worked there as well. And I continued my journey into New York City, where I took on a project building up a life science sector for a recruiting company before going back to Germany in early 2019. And well, what happened back then, at this point of time, I got approached by another former client of mine, actually, who asked me if I wanted to take on the task to hire 80 employees within 1 year for a CDMO.
No pressure.
Yeah, well, that was quite a challenge, and the challenge I didn't want to face myself. And so I took on Lasse, who's my co-founder of WeCo Experts. We founded the company WeCo and took on the challenge and actually ended up hiring 137. I still know that number on top of my head, employees for that company within 1 year, within 12 months. And the interesting thing was that it was positions from an operator to C-level. So really big range. And then COVID came and the crash came with it. And that was in March 2020. And from, well, 1 minute to the other, everything got stopped. Yeah. And we really found ourselves on the ground and, well, really needed to reset our minds and pull ourselves up again. That was quite something. And then, well, in September 2020, we decided to just give it another push and just try it for one more time, hired our first employee and rented an office. And yeah, well, now here we are. 2022, we kicked off with 12 colleagues, and we're focusing on 2 pillars, actually. 360 recruiting for life sciences is one topic where we're focusing on, And the second topic is, or the second service we are offering is HR as a service for life sciences and tech / hypergrowth companies, where we offer portfolio when it comes to, for example, renting an internal recruiter or RPO projects or recruitment process outsourcing. Yeah. So what else? You asked me why I love what I do, right, Raj? Yeah. So yeah, well, that's a good question. As a recruiter, I always loved what I do because I was able to connect experts to improve careers on the one hand, and on the other hand, help businesses to develop further with their experts that we actually hired, or that I actually hired. Mm-hmm. And that in a constantly changing environment, which is really cool. And as a leader, I really love to inspire my staff with my journey, and create opportunities for each individual to develop. Yeah. And it's so great to be able to show them what's possible when you really, really push on borders and just think out of the box. Yeah. And well, yeah, it's just amazing to see what has been built throughout the years and what's possible. So I would never imagined that if you would have asked me 3 years ago.
You know what I love is that your backstory is a story for entrepreneurs, a story for leaders, a story for embracing your dreams, and that you end up where you needed to end up anyway, following your passion. There's so many stories in your backstory. We could go into that for hours, but we won't. We'll stick to the recruiting.
Let's do that.
Exactly. That's another dialogue. And Christian, thank you for joining us. I'm going to give a quick synopsis on you, and I'd love to hear some of your story as well. So Christian has over 12 years of experience in recruiting and placing permanent staff from expert to C-level, so really the full spectrum. And over the 10 years of his career, he has also been working in life science area for different companies in Germany, UK, and Switzerland. He has a great UK accent, and I'm very qualified to say that. Newly, he's just joined in Venda just last week, in fact, and he will take over permanent placements as well as lead growth in the DACH region. So Christian, that's the most recent development in your career, but how did you get here?
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. No pressure on my English for the next couple of minutes. Well, as Marlon mentioned, right? So I probably, like many people, fell into recruitment right after my studies, not really knowing what I have to expect and what kind of career is going to turn out of this. So I started in 2010. In Frankfurt, moved over to Switzerland really quickly after, and then got another opportunity to join a recruitment company in London. So for Europe, I have lived and worked in the 3 biggest staffing countries, which is quite, I always see this as a little bit of a USP, so I can combine different styles of the recruitment sector. During the time and during my career, I was involved in setting up different teams, different divisions, founding new areas for companies, and I was always very excited in building something up new, and always that part was somehow something that was driving me. So last year, I left LHI Group and took out some time to spend some time with my family. And this year, I got the opportunity to partner with 2 really good colleagues from which I know for quite a long time now, and they are focusing predominantly on placing interim people into life science companies. And one of the nice parts here is that I'm complementary their offering to our clients, and I can really focus on delivering a quality service to candidates and helping life science companies to hit their goals and also to grow.
Amazing, fantastic, and congratulations on the position and the two founders that you'll be working with. So we'll kick off with the questions. I always like to start with the backstory. Laura always says how important it is for building trust and integrity, and I always like to qualify that you really are the experts in this, right? So we're living in a very different world than when you both started your recruiting journeys. We're experiencing new challenges, of course, from the ever-present impact of pandemic. But I would argue that this is only accelerated challenges that we're already facing with new work concepts, right? And virtual concepts and nomad concepts. So let's summarize the core characteristics of the challenges that we're facing. Malin, why don't you go first?
All right, will do. So obviously, we've already been facing the war of talents before the pandemic. No, that's nothing new. Everybody is speaking about Fachkräftemangel, as you call it in German. So finding ourselves in a very candidate-driven market in general, but specifically in certain sectors, like for example, the life science industry or the IT sector, obviously, yeah. The good candidates out there, great talent out there, they have been able to choose their jobs for years, yeah. And nevertheless, companies have been able to win new talents more easy with offering standards like, for example, home office. Yeah, back in the days before the pandemic, that was something that was amazing. Hey,
differentiator.
Offers home office possibilities, right?
Now having an office is a plus.
Exactly. You say it, yeah. So, and this is actually the point, Laura, because post-pandemic hiring, in my eyes, already is and will be even more challenging, because actually home office possibilities, for example, are not an add-on anymore. Flexibility is not an add-on anymore. Yeah, it's not an extra USP. It's actually status quo that is expected and needs to be offered nowadays. Yeah, and as a result, companies need to be even more creative and very, very flexible when it comes to hiring talent. Yeah, and on top of that, obviously, the new generation is used to working digitally from anywhere in the world. Yeah. They call it workation. I mean, this is the new buzzword. Yeah, what are you doing? I'm doing workation. I'm living in Cape Town. Yeah, spending a few months here, and this actually has been pushed through the Corona situation. Yeah, where nobody needed to go to the office. Nobody was wanted to be seen in an office. Yeah, so that obviously gave everyone the chance to work from anywhere in the world. Yeah. Well, on the other hand, obviously, it's a great chance because talent doesn't necessarily need to be on site anymore. And this, again, opens up borders and broadens opportunities to hire from anywhere in the world regarding the region. Yeah. And then, on the other hand, this requires a new management style, obviously, and team building efforts, because, well, back in the days, you were sitting together in one office, and then it was obviously more easy to manage a team and to build up, to create a team spirit. Or how are you going to do that remotely when everybody is spread out the world in the world, most probably even with different time zones, yeah? And well, this is the situation we will be facing, and it will be challenging.
Christian, would you agree that those are the core challenges that you've seen when you've been dealing with clients?
Absolutely, yeah. So I can agree with Malin. The life science industry, such as many different other industries like IT, cybersecurity, renewables, they have always been very candidate driven. And I think we kind of like have seen a little bit of an acceleration during the Corona pandemic and the recent releases. People have hung on to their jobs or the positions due to the uncertainties, and now everything is a little bit more clearer where we're going. People are also willing again to move a lot quicker, right? So, and We've seen this for a few good months now. There's a lot more movement on the market, a lot more companies hiring. In fact, loads more jobs than candidates we can actually find. This morning I was looking at a company, they had 400 open vacancies. But at the same time, it's not only going to be about the work and maybe the money. It will be a lot more about the purpose of the work, the balance between the work, and what has been a benefit in the past will be now the norm. So the differentiation from different companies is going to be one of the new challenges. And I guess the companies who are willing to put in the trust and the flexibility, they have an opportunity to retain their good talents, but also to find some new ones.
Right, got ya. And Malin, we had talked recently about the idea that, you know, even if you're not a nomad and on workation, there's still this reluctance to come into the city and go to an office versus being virtual and being in a home office. And even if you're not sitting on a beach in Bali, would you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So obviously it also depends on the branch you're working in. Yeah, I mean, not everybody can work remotely. Yeah, look at, well, obviously I've always been focusing on the life science sector. If you need to go to the lab, if you work in production, if you work in packaging, I mean, you can't do that from Mexico, right? You need to be on site still, even during the pandemic. Recruiting candidates for those kind of positions, it shows that candidates are more hesitant to change jobs. Well, firstly, regarding the uncertain situation that we were facing in the past, obviously, but plus a majority doesn't want to move cities anymore or locations, yeah, because obviously it's also a lot tougher nowadays to build up a new social environment than it used to be in the past, yeah. On the other hand, it's actually easier for us recruiters when it comes down to hiring and interviewing, and also for companies and candidates, because interview processes can be pushed a lot quicker, yeah. Because obviously the candidates don't need to show up on site anymore. You can just arrange an interview real quick and dial in, and then that's done, yeah, within a few hours.
Much tougher for the manager.
Sorry, Laura?
It's so much tougher for the manager. You don't even know it's happening. You can't even get that idea that someone may be interviewing elsewhere because they don't have too many dentist appointments in a week.
True.
True, yeah.
Well, yeah, but then again, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, the experts have been speaking about the so-called talk action gap for years, yeah. And we've seen that with Omicron now, and with the quarantine situation. We have had delays in delivery, ships are closed due to missing employees, yeah, that just needed to stay in quarantine. So shops are closed. Omicron just gave us a short insight on what can happen, yeah. And actually, we will be facing a situation. We could be facing a situation like we had if we don't take action now, yeah, and change our way of recruiting, yeah, or approaching new talent. So actually, 2030, there's a shortage of 3 million predicted, yeah. So the babies are going, the baby boomers are going into the well-deserved retirement, and there are no skilled people to follow. So it's going to be a challenge.
It's particularly bad in Germany. I remember looking at those statistics just a couple of years ago, and there's a huge gap between the older and the millennials. So yeah, I can imagine this is going to be a continual challenge. Now, Laura, we talked about another thing that's been happening in this last couple of years. I'd love for you to approach that topic.
This is the big quit, as we've talked about it before on the dialogues here, and it's a trend, you know, the great resignation, the big quit, there are a lot of different words for it now, but this trend mid-pandemic towards voluntary resignations. A lot of ideas about why. I think many of the things that you've mentioned are leading into it. There's something about needing to be fulfilled. We've talked about this as well, about maybe it's a search for purpose, or why are they doing this? And so what does this mean for you in recruiting? There's talent out there, but how do you find it?
Christian, maybe you'd like to jump in on that one?
Yes, sure, 100%. I mean, that's what I touched on a little bit earlier, right? So the big quit is mainly people sticking in their roles or in their jobs, even if they didn't like it. And probably before the pandemic, when someone didn't like it, they start searching, etc. But now, because of the uncertainty of the future, and we all remember March 2020, we didn't know what's going to happen for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Everyone's a bit like, okay, well, I just hang in here. I don't want to be in a new probation period or something else, right? So now we see a total shift, right? So even there, we have people now resigning jobs even though they haven't got a new one yet. Something that a couple of years back was almost like impossible to think of, right? So it's a completely shift. And of course, I mean, the talents are out there, and I can say from our portfolio, Marlin's and myself and other recruitment colleagues I've been speaking to, we do have some really good candidates in our portfolio, because there's still always someone else coming through. But the demand for these people now is so high that you really have to overthink your recruitment process as a company, right? So you almost have to be as quickly as possible. I've just this morning qualified a candidate, and I spoke to her just before this call, and she's already in 2 more processes than she was this morning. So just gives you a little bit the speed, but at the same time, I mean, probably heard this multiple times, the fruit basket and the table tennis or football table doesn't make the difference anymore, right? So the drivers is not mainly that. It's more the purpose and the meaning of the job, while maintaining a good private life, right? So you don't live to work, you work to live, and that mindset has shifted quite a lot. So I guess important for companies right now is to really adapt your own proposition, your branding to that, while being quick, open-minded, look for opportunities in the candidates rather than looking for the blind spots of why someone maybe isn't a good fit. More look for why someone is a good fit, and there still should be some good opportunities for some good talents out there.
Excellent. You know, I've just realized we've got 6 minutes left, and I do want you guys to give some tips and takeaways. So
okay,
why don't we jump ahead a little bit, if that's okay with you, Laura? I'd
Sure.
love, Malin, for you to share some of what you were talking about in terms of thinking ahead for companies, and also how they can sustain positive experiences. Then let's talk a little bit about challenges on life sciences, and then I'd love for you guys to give your takeaways, because they're so fabulous. So Malin, why don't you jump in with how can they sustain positive experiences? What can companies do?
Well, I'm I just lost it fast, to be honest.
Next one.
Maybe I can help you. I think so. Talking about the purpose and stuff like it right now it's a lot more about trust, support, and understanding, right? So everything that has worked in the pandemic, where people had to work from home, there was no other option, they were forced to be staying from home. We trusted them as leaders, but we also supported everyone because it was so uncertain. So really maintaining that culture, but also to understand that everyone's got a different setup at home. Not only everyone's going to have like a perfect setup, and family situation, etc. There's loads of stuff we need to cope of, and almost like where it needs to fit into the private life, not the other way around, right? So, but at the same time, if you want to have a positive experience for people working from home, I guess it's really important to almost like treat it at the same time as the office level. So implement some sort of that coffee machine talking, engaging with colleagues on a non-meeting Zoom meeting level, right? So encourage these routines and make sure you help the people to maintain the same networking ability. Yeah,
you said it's all about trust and support. And how is that different though, or is that different for life sciences? How is that specific to your industry? How do you see that in your industry?
I wouldn't say, Laura, it's different to our industry. I think it's different that people are fed up with the micromanagement or things like this, right? I guess you hire the people to let them give you ideas, not to tell them what to do, right? As Steve Jobs already said.
Yeah. But and so you're seeing that in life sciences as well, that was just something that was there in the industry already. And now I liked what you said before about don't look for blind spots, look for the opportunities in the candidate.
Yeah, I mean, life's...
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Christian. Go ahead, Christian.
Sorry, I think for life science specifically, because it's so regulated, such a regulated environment, the companies wanted to have the knowledge within their companies, and that trust and that homework ability wasn't always 100% there. There are some areas and some spots where we always had home office abilities, but right now everyone feels a lot more comfortable to engage only virtually and lead virtual teams. Yeah, and my view was more on how can you effectively lead a virtual team, and that was based on the trust. So that wasn't specific life science.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in because I do want you to get your takeaways. Malin, you had a bit of tips on talent acquisition function for permanent recruiting, something about the war of talents. If you could answer us a little bit about that and then give us your main takeaway, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, well, I think it's really, really important for everybody to remember that the war for talents will evolve. Companies will need to adapt and be more flexible and a lot quicker in the decision-making process when it comes to hiring. And it really, really makes sense to set up a talent acquisition function that focuses on smart and clean processes. Yeah, that would definitely be an add-on for the companies in the war for talents. And well, my takeaway, I think it's really, really important, even today it's a lot more important than it ever was, to really build a brand. Yeah, employer branding is key, and live up to promises. Listen to employees and what they want. Yeah, identify the needs of the employees, and always think one step ahead. Yeah, and also what I think is key, growing the company from inside rather than the outside, because the talent that is already there is already part of the journey you're going. Yeah, and you need to keep in mind that good people attract good people. It's always been like that.
That's fantastic. I love that. I mean, it seems like such obvious answers, but really it's things that we forget. Employee are your advocates. They're the ones that are going to bring in the talent. Christian, if you could share with us what you think organizations can do to prepare and give your core takeaways, that would be fab.
Yeah, I guess really keep up the excitement during the recruitment process, right? So candidates do want to be wanted as well, all right? It's not the time for putting up the poker face and not share immediate feedback, etc., right? So it's a two-way street. If anything, right now it's probably more companies applying for candidates than the other way around. So just simple things like after the interview, send a WhatsApp message, be approachable, give some quick feedback, and keep that momentum going, right? Everyone knows that when they make a decision, or when they are willing to make a decision, they want to make a decision quick, right? So if you then drag out the process too long, that's the point where you're going to lose candidates over your competition, right? So yeah, that doesn't mean you can't test people and you have to build up like a shiny world. but yeah, just be engaging and be quick.
Yeah, clearly this is a never-ending gambit because we're always going to need people for businesses, and therefore the thoughts you shared today are going to continue to be relevant. But we could have filled another hour with your input, I'm sure.
Probably.
I'd love for you to give one final message to people to take away, and then I'm going to close this up. We've gone a little bit longer, so I do apologize to the audience, but we don't want to cut it off right there. So last question, final aspirational message that you'd like to leave, and then I'll close this up.
Yeah. Shall I go ahead?
Please.
You want to? Yeah. Okay. Oh, my final message. What would that be? I would say, be quick. Take action now to retain and win the talent that you want to retain and win. But this also means that you need to actively move your internal borders in order to grow and win the war of experts in the future. Be flexible.
I love it. Fantastic. Christian.
I would say make it easy to engage with you, right? We live in a world where you have one-day delivery, instant payment to get a coffee. You've got all the information you need on access in your phone right there. But still, some companies expect you to send a motivational letter, to fill out a portal, etc. While at the same time, through swiping left and right, you almost can find your next partner. So really keep the barriers low as possible, so people don't lose the interest to engage with you and to get to know your company.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. So there you have it. Remember that an excellent recruiting strategy starts with employee advocacy. And if you remove barriers for potential candidates to reach you, then you could win the war on talent. Friday, we just continue our discussion on Bitcoin. It's our final of a 3-part series. And next week, we're going to talk about Google Design Sprints, how you can inspire innovation from idea to tested prototype in 5 days. This audio will be shared on Spotify. This video will be shared on YouTube. Information on where to follow these fabulous experts so you can actually gain more insights are also added underneath both the Spotify and the YouTube. So thank you very much for joining us. And sorry we had to rush it a little at the end, but really appreciate your insights. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Raj.
Bye.
Raj, bye.